Good Sunday morning to you. We really appreciate you joining us. Right off the top, I'm going to ask you if you'll just take a moment, let us know who's tuned in, where you're from. And kind of is a wonderful experience to see how large our spiritual community has grown and how wide it reaches. So thank you for taking a moment to do that. Now, also a little bit of housekeeping, and this is not my favorite thing to do. Never has been. It's just a reality. If To sustain our spiritual community and the work that we do, including these broadcasts, we need donations. So, church members, thank you for being so faithful. And those who are in our wider reaching spiritual community, if you have a moment and can donate, it's athinkingchurch.org. And there's a donate button in the top right-hand corner. Thanks for letting me get that out there. One more piece of housekeeping. Beginning on May the 16th, so just slightly less than a month from now, Presbyterian Church of the Covenant will begin gathering in person. We're going to gather outdoors and request people to wear a mask, and we'll have it marked off for social distancing. We will still be doing our live broadcast. It's going to be interesting to get it all working at the same time. So there might be some glitches, but hopefully we'll work through those pretty quickly. So that said, this coming week is most likely going to be, kind of a pivotal week. It could end up being overwhelming. So my message today kind of takes that in consideration. I know that on the broadcast, it's got a different title. Something didn't switch that was supposed to. But today, we're going to actually be talking about happiness and how happiness is part of resistance. Matter of fact, a very important part. So with that said, I'm going to read some selected verses from Psalm 21. This is one of those messages where, particularly at our early service at Presbyterian Church of the Covenant, we talk about things that are spiritual, but it doesn't necessarily have to reference God or Jesus because the teachings of Jesus are in there. And this will be one of those kinds of days. So do hear these words from Psalm 21 and soak them in, but recognize that I'm not going to be directly going back to them. That said, here now, Psalm 21, selected readings from the Inclusive Bible. Written by the Priest for Equality. As always, I highly recommend it. Doing what is right and being just pleases Yahweh more than sacrifice. The wicked are dragged away by their own violence and their refusal to do what is right. The path of the corrupt is filled with deceit, as the conduct of the innocent is upright. The wicked are dragged away. I doubled up on that. Those who refuse to hear the plea of the oppressed will themselves cry out and be ignored. When justice is done, the upright are overjoyed and the wicked are terrified. Those who seek out virtue and kindness will gain life, prosperity, and honor. One person with wisdom can storm a mighty citadel and bring down the establishment they had so relied upon. May we add blessing and understanding to the readings of these words. Last week, in between the scripture and the message, we had a short violin solo from one of our church members, Ruth Matheny, and we're going to do that again today. So, performing on violin, Giga from Partita number 3 in E major by Johann Sebastian Bach. This is Ruth Matheny on guitar, on violin. Thank you for that, Ruth. We are just blessed to have so many wonderful artists that are associated with our church in one way or the other. Ruth is a member. Not only is she a member, she's part of the leadership team, and she is an outstanding violinist. So thank you for that, Ruth. Much appreciated. My message today is entitled Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In the Declaration of Independence, this nation's founders named these three, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as the inspiration for the basis of our government. Those three are so important that the founders named them as unalienable rights. Actually, in Jefferson's first draft, they were also called sacred rights. Now, I find it interesting that life and liberty are listed as basically achievable states of being, but happiness is understood as something that we can only pursue, as if happiness is not a fully achievable state of being. Of course, it is important to keep in mind that having your life and having your liberty, well, they are certainly part of the pursuit of happiness. Now, despite that, part of our government is actively removing the right to life and liberty for a particular set of our fellow Americans, from limiting voting rights of people of color to defending white police officers who kill people of color while in custody. The right to life and liberty continues to be methodically withheld from that particular set of Americans. The interesting thing for me is this. While they may be able to limit access to the right of life and liberty for people of color in America, they cannot limit that group's ability to pursue happiness. If anything, working to restore the right to life and liberty for people of color in America is one way to pursue happiness. It's easy to get down and overwhelmed by the depth and horror of racism in America. Now, while we must see it for the evil that it is, we must not let it overwhelm us, even as we diligently work to right it. We must not forget the value of happiness in our lives, even in the face of evil. So today I'd like to talk a bit about the value of happiness and how it is part of resisting the evils in the world. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said that peace is not merely a distant goal that we seek, but a means by which we arrive at that goal. Now, I can't help but believe, much like the founders of the nation, that happiness is fairly similar to peace. For that matter, in terms of pursuing it, I believe peace and happiness are kindred spirits. That said, happiness is a direction, not a destination. It isn't a place to which we attempt to arrive as much as it is a way we go about traveling. It is a feeling and a purpose that we carry with us through our daily lives. In many ways, it's an emotional buffer that protects us from what can sometimes seem like constant letdowns, confusions, and evils of life. In other words, it is not just an important life skill. It really is an essential life skill. Now, I have to say, I in no way believe that it's possible to always be happy. After all, it's a pursuit, not a destination. However, I do believe we all need to endeavor to pursue it more frequently. So let's spend just a little bit of time thinking about what the practice of being happy looks like. To be happy, to be joyful is to see the positive in things and to maintain a sense of hopefulness. I mean, you know it when you see a joyous person with their wide smile and their glowing eyes. It's almost like a light some people carry with them. It's as if their happiness is just as present externally as it is internally. Now, one important step in figuring out how to travel this thing that we call life while pursuing happiness, well, it is by sorting out which strategies for happiness work for you and which do not. For example, lots of folks seem to believe that having certain materialistic things and wealth is key to happiness, even though reality has shown us over and over again that wealth provides only temporary happiness, if any at all. And likewise, some folks believe that focusing on a single goal, like a talent or a job or a person, is the key to finding happiness. Frequently, though, a life lived that way can leave a person feeling empty and alone. The reality is the answer to being happier is deceptively simple and frustratingly difficult at the same time. The difficult truth is that it is the people who consistently focus on being happy that are more naturally inclined to feel happy. Again, happiness is a direction, not a destination. It isn't a place to which we attempt to arrive as much as it is the way we go about traveling. Yes, and yes, and yes, it can be difficult. And yes, it can sometimes seem like those around us are acting as barriers to our happiness, preventing us from experiencing happiness. But in the end, most happy people recognize that their abilities to succeed at being happy, even if others are legitimately working against them, rest fully within themselves. And not only that, but they also see that those who we may be tempted to see as barriers still deserve the care and respect that we want for ourselves. To be happy with others is to accept who they are, even if they choose a path very different from ours. Being a happier person impacts our lives positively in tons of ways. And I'm not just talking about how we experience our day-to-day activities. For example, a study from researchers in New Zealand and the United States suggests that a person's ability to express positive, happy emotions is actually tied to their risk for heart disease. So if you're happy and you know it, don't just clap your hands, just show it or tell someone, maybe both, clap your hands, it's fine. In recent years also, psychologists have begun to appreciate the benefits of happiness and positive emotions. You see, benefits that include everything from, the benefits of those include everything from enhanced creativity to improved immune system function. I guess COVID has shown us how important that really is. Dr. Barbara Fredrickson at the University of North Carolina, just a bit down the road from here, is a leader in the field of positive psychology. And in response to the question of what good are positive emotions, she gives, well, several responses. First of all, it turns out that happiness broadens your focus and expands your thinking. Positive emotions like joy and happiness expand your focus of attention. When you're angry, your focus narrows to the source of your frustration and the object of your anger. She says that when you are upset, your mind is like a heat-seeking missile bent on destruction. If you are resisting working for change, that kind of outlook tends to be met with less than helpful responses. And it also has a tendency to put you on a one-track approach and closes you off to more creative solutions to your pursuit for change and justice. Now, contrast that with what happens when you get excited about something. Your mind actually opens up and there is a free flow of ideas and intellectual possibility. Curiosity abounds. And that's precisely why passion is so essential to artistic endeavors. It's also why there needs to be a high positivity ratio in the workplace if we want a high rate of productivity and a healthy bottom line. Now, on a related note, Dr. Fredrickson also says that happiness, and this is so important, happiness improves your ability to problem solve. She even suggests that when you're frustrated and you're having trouble solving some problem that confronts you, say systemic racism, what you need is a good laugh. Clearly, that's not all you need. It turns out that laughter can actually help sort of unfreeze a stuck brain. She says to think of humor as a lubricant that allows your wheels to spin, your thought process to once again move towards a solution. Now, the mechanism that underlies effective problem solving is creativity. And happiness helps. Happiness helps in the production of the brain chemicals that aid in such efforts. So laugh it up. Happiness also builds physical, intellectual, and social resources. Maybe not so surprisingly, people are more playful when they're happy. They're more interested in things like golf and tennis and biking and running. Part of this comes from the higher self-esteem seen in happy people. In short, happiness translates into fitness, stronger muscles, improved heart-lung function, increased flexibility. People also learn better. They learn better when they're in a positive frame of mind. For the most part, the most effective school teachers are the ones who find ways to make education enjoyable. Laughter makes kids pay attention, and paying attention is clearly a key to learning. If you think about it, the same's true for us. Like when we take a continuing education class, you kind of want a speaker who's, well, not only knowledgeable about the subject, but one who can be engaging in some way. And also, not so surprisingly, people gravitate towards positive people and away from negative ones. If you're seeking a larger social group, happiness is part of the path to it. Happy people are just more fun to be with. Nobody wants to spend too much time around what Saturday Night Live calls a Debbie Downer or a Daniel Downer, as the case may be. And here's why social relationships are so important. Warm, caring friendships provide a stabilizing support system. Good friends are validating, inspiring, and even motivational. They boost our sense of purpose and belonging. And countless studies have shown that strong social bonds are a key to a well-lived life. And not only that, when we are confronting the powers that be, that kind of support system can be essential for keeping us encouraged and energized. I'll conclude with one last reason to be joyful. In some ways, given the current state of our nation, it's maybe the most important one for me. When the world seems like it is full of hate and divisions, when every time you turn around, it seems like people are yelling names at each other and putting racism, sexism, ageism, lookism, heterosexism, and so many other isms into play. One of the most effective forms of protest is to be happy anyway, to love people anyway, to encourage others anyway. You see, those kinds of evil, those evil isms thrive when they are able to suck away our happiness. The more they get us down, the more difficult it is to resist them, and the less creative we are in the way we go about challenging them. Pursuit of happiness in the face of those evils, which includes ending those evils, is a form of resistance. Aja Monet, a contemporary American poet, has said, "Everybody wants to get free, but what is it gonna look like when we're free? We must begin to practice that now." Happiness, joyfulness in the face of negativity, strife, and division of our nation is essential. It is practicing what it will look like when we are finally free of these negative life approaches that pull us down as a nation and as a people. So let's steal from Bobby McFerrin. Don't worry, be happy. And I'm not saying to count your trials joy. I'm just saying, find the moments of joy and happiness during those trials. I'm saying don't stop resisting in the places that we must resist, But don't forget for one moment that your happiness is possibly one of the most beautiful forms of resistance that you can offer. Amen. So let's take a moment. As a matter of fact, I want to just share with you first a thought that keeps coming back to me as I was giving that message and talking about the importance of play and happiness. Most folks know that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is one of my heroes. And this happiness, this joyfulness in the midst of the trials and the horrors and the systemic racism and the systemic injustice, particularly when it comes to income. In the midst of all of that, he still knew he had to find joy. As a matter of fact, the day that he was killed, just before he walked out of his hotel room, he and those closest to him were busy in the middle of a pillow fight. Even the great Dr. King found how to be joyful in the midst of difficulties. Let's now take a moment, calm ourselves, focus inward a bit. It can be a time of meditation for you. As always, it can be just grabbing at words that connect with you, or feel free to pray along with me. Let's bow our heads. Good and gracious God, may we be awakened. May we see violence, oppression, hatred, hoarding, power, and privilege with eyes wide open. Even as we've made some progress, assuring more equality for some and enlightening a sense of righteous resistance against the abuse of power in others, we've continued to live in an all too routine awareness of the places in this world where people needlessly suffer and are abused. Aware, but maybe not significantly motivated to risk our own abundance of well-being in order to make the world better for us all. May we be awakened from our false assumptions that tells us we can continue on that way and hope to make the world better. May we be awakened from our denial of that reality, that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. May we be awakened to the reality that far too many suffer from the injustice of not having their basic needs met, their fundamental human rights met, clean water, enough food, safety, a roof under which to sleep, access to health care, the right to be treated with dignity, the right to be treated equally, freedom from slavery, freedom from discrimination, access to education, reasonable privacy, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. May we not only recognize these rights, but also recognize that when any lack them, it is a threat to all of creation. May we be awakened and encouraged to pursue access for all people to those basic human rights. And may we not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. and in the dark times that we will surely experience as we confront those who wish to hold on tightly to their power and privilege. May we be a light to one another. May we be of joy to one another. May we be a beacon of happiness to one another. May we be awakened to the reality that the love, kindness, joy, hope, peace, and grace that we offer each other are not only the only true valuable things in this life, but they are the means through which we can all work to create a better future and a better world. So may we be awakened to each other, awakened to the systemic damage that occurs every time even one person is abused, oppressed, or marginalized, awakened to our connectedness, and awakened to the possibilities already present in this moment and in the moments moving forward. Amen. So we have more music for you from one of, I always say our favorites, but Doug is a fantastic singer-songwriter, and I always love the approach that he has to his songs, and you can really tell they come from the heart. So I'm going to be sharing with you a song from Doug Baker, and I think that's dougbakermusic.com if you want to hear more from him. And his song is entitled Suits Me Just Fine.
I try to get up early, and I always make my bed. When I can, I take a good long walk. It helps to clear my head. Sit down with coffee and a song to caffeinate and rhyme. This life is not for everyone, and it suits me just fine. There's good folks who come to me when they want to reach their goals. Some entrust me with their children to help them to feel whole. I offer them the music to get them through hard times. It's a way to make a living, and that suits me just fine. There's a fine young man who honors me by blazing his own trail, and a real good woman who loves me true even when I fail. They lift me up, they give me hope to move on down the line. And even when that road gets rough, that road suits me just fine. And when it's time for me to rest and I lay my body down, my ashes scatter to the wind and good friends gather round. I hope when they speak of me and remember the good times, they'll say he led a different life and it suited him just fine. Yes, I know I lead a blessed life, and that suits me just fine.
Thank you for that, Doug. Greatly appreciated. I always enjoy your music and your heart. So for all that have joined us, thank you. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for working through all of these issues with us and thinking about it and helping spread a more positive message into the world. As you know, if you've been following, I watch COVID really closely. The U.S. is slowly beginning into what could be a bad phase. Asia, some small parts of Asia have already closed down because they've hit their fourth wave. I'm worried that if we don't kind of all gather and do the right thing right now, we can end up in the same place. So please, if you can stay home, stay home. If you can't, wear your mask, cover your nose when you do so. Wash your hands, 20 minutes. Boy, we'd have some dry hands. 20 seconds. Make sure you get all the good parts in there. Physically distance when you can. 6 foot's great, but more is better. Most importantly, love one another. Again, thank you for joining. Leave a quick note if you have questions, or leave us just where you're from. We'd love to see. Again, thank you, and we look forward to seeing you next week.